I have finally made it to Pride's Corners Farms. This is in Lebanon, Connecticut. This is a wholesale nursery, but it's on a scale that just a really wild scale. They mostly ship here into the Northeast, into garden centers, landscapers, I'm sure supply plants for very large commercial projects and things like that. And then over into the Midwest as well, and probably even into the Southeast, but their main area is gonna be up here in the North. When we get up here this far north, you'll see all of the structures. Almost everything here has to go into a hoop house in the wintertime and be under some sort of white poly for the wintertime. So even things that are, I was looking at, some of the conifers that we would definitely not have to put into, or roses that we would definitely not have to put into any kind of hoop house in the wintertime. We may have to give them some light protection down in the south growing them, but up here they have to go into they'll go pot to pot. So this middle row of pieras here, these will get smushed into these two houses here before they get covered up for the winter. Not a lot of leafy evergreens this far north in Connecticut, right? We're close to Massachusetts. And so, but there are some that will grow this far north. A lot of azaleas are zone 6 hardy, and they grow a lot of Encore Azaleas here. Actually, some of the prettiest Encore Azaleas we've ever seen growing anywhere here at this nursery up in Connecticut. So again, for this, I think they're zone 6B maybe as we're standing here, and a lot of the Encores are zone 6 hardy. As you can see in this photo, how beautiful. They're very, very good at growing them. Another leafy evergreen they can have up here are pieras. This is Pieris japonica. Lots of varieties of these out in the world. This is one called Purity, which is really interesting. I actually would like to try this one in our Raleigh garden, because it's one of the later flowering pieras. And one thing with pieras is the first warm day in February, these things will try to bloom for us in Raleigh. So it'd be nice, especially up here, I'm sure that they could have one that holds off on the flowers. But it's got red buds that are followed by white flowers, very, very showy bell-shaped flowers that hang on a little raceme that you've probably seen before. And then you get this flush of growth that has this reddish color to it. Just a beautiful plant. I mean, these Pieris japonicas will get some size on them over time. Even the ones that say they stay smaller will eventually creep up if you let them. But this is one I'd actually like to try. Again, this variety is called Purity. Again, it's supposed to bloom later, which would, again, kind of be nice, because we don't even get pollinators on ours because the pollinators are all asleep. If you look up here, there are a lot of evergreen azaleas here. So this is Hino Crimson, an azalea that's been around forever and ever. It's a red flowering azalea, so spring flowering azalea. This one is always looks great in a container, looks great in the ground, has a really nice compact shape to it. You're obviously looking through a door on an uncovered house right now. Red stems on it that I think you can see there, kind of a roundish dark green leaf. But of course, then they can grow. They can grow Encores up here, so they could get spring and fall flowering Encore Azaleas up here as well. I think, what would they have over there? It was Lily, there was Twist. I can't remember what other varieties. We'll cut across this path. We're in a working nursery, so trucks and trailers are going past us. There's an azalea here that's pretty interesting. The main azaleas you're gonna see up here are going to be deciduous azaleas. And so this is a hybrid one called, it's Azalea X Pennsylvanica, but this is Weston's Pennsylvania deciduous azalea. Fragrant, a little late, a little later blooming than we would see on some of these, but with fragrant pink flowers. Plant looks great. This is a really, it's a really fantastic deciduous azalea, just because the foliage looks so great on it as well. And then the flower, pretty long flowered. I see a bee on one of the flowers over there. So this almost looks like an evergreen azalea, right? It's such a nice looking deciduous azalea. These will get pretty big in time, but that's one that I had seen before at some of the shows. Like, I go to shows and people bring things in and I see it, but I hadn't seen it in a nursery setting until now. If you're following along with this trip, we were at Putnam Hill Nursery a few days ago, and she had some microbiota growing along her driveway, which is a ground cover, really soft textured ground cover. Here it is in a tree form. So somebody has taken the time to, I don't know if these are, I'm assuming these are grafted on here somewhere. I don't know if they were grafted or pruned up. It wasn't. Okay. Right. It's got to be grafted, right?
Maybe. No, actually, I don't know.
Okay, gotcha. I don't know. I don't know how these were actually. They got to be grafted onto something else, right? I mean, it just seemed like it would take forever to build that kind of trunk if you weren't grafting them. Anyway, super soft textured, typically grown as a ground cover up here. It's a little hot in Raleigh for this particular one, but you can see you can't stop touching it. It's just super, super soft, you know, in comparison to some other conifers. It's growing right next to some crepe myrtles, which, you know, is kind of interesting. We were in New York City yesterday, actually up in at Citi Field to see a Mets game, and there are crepe myrtles growing right beside the stadium, you know, right there. And then on the other side of that are some actual yews, which we typically use. We typically use Cephalotaxis in the south that are yew-like, but they're not technically yews. And up here they have yews by the tens of thousands in all different kinds of shapes and sizes, narrow ones, ground cover ones, shrub-sized ones. There's a few summer snowflake viburnum blooming in a couple containers. I think these greenhouses are where they pull some things too, as they've sold them in other areas and they need to get some additional space. But it's gold for us because there's a ton of interesting things in these few houses right next to one another. But there's summer snowflake viburnum. That one will get similar to our Shasta at the house, but slightly smaller, more condensed cluster, and definitely more ongoing flowers. Overall on this one, very compact habit. Typically, we just filmed Shasta viburnum at Steph's sister's house, and it's 20 feet tall and 20 feet wide at this point. Several neat things in here. Here's an espalier, climbing hydrangea. I don't know how much this thing would set you back, but it is a nice plant, a really, really nice plant. I think that's probably like a 10-gallon. No, it's probably a 7-gallon container. There's a Shishigashara Japanese maple here. This one always has this really super interesting structure, and it's kind of rigid. You know, you don't think about Japanese maples being, you know, rigid like this, but it has this super interesting foliage on that one. That one's always been on my list to get, but we've never acquired one. There's sky pencil hollies, you know, which, you know, everybody says are zone 5 to 9. Here we are in zone 6B, and they can grow some beautiful ones here. They actually have bloomed earlier in the season and have a heck of a fruit set on them. But those are some really, really nice container sky pencil hollies. Here's a plant that if you've been watching the channel for a long time, you'd be familiar with. This is a clethra called 16 Candles. They grow a lot of different clethra here, large ones, small ones. This one you can keep pretty small. This is a white flowering clethra, and I don't know if you can see the bees and everything moving about in there, or the scent is unbelievable. But this is native plant that has great green foliage, blooms during the summer when other things aren't blooming. Pollinator magnet, you know, again, after most any other shrub would be finished blooming, and then incredible fall color on top of that. But if you can find 16 Candles, this is one you can size control a bit more than some of the others, so you can keep it grows this compact kind of on its own, has been my experience with it. There's Viburnum nudum next to it. This is another native that's a four-season plant. Looks good in the winter time. Small, basically becomes almost a little small tree. And there is a dwarf one out in the world that we want to get in the garden in Raleigh, but our regular Viburnum nudum's what I think about 10 feet tall at this point, Steph. It's already flowered. You typically get, if they get pollinated, you'll get some fruit on them. This one's got, you know, somehow one right there that will turn. The birds will eventually take them. I would think with this many plants here, they would have gotten a little more, but they're, with this many bees that are here. There's a really interesting, another interesting azalea here called Millennium. This one is another one of those Weston hybrids, but look how heavily this plant flowers. It's got kind of a red bud that then opens pink in the center. Incredibly fragrant, great dark green foliage. It is a deciduous azalea, so it's going to lose its leaves in the winter, but most people watching this video can grow this plant, and it typically blooms. It's very long bloomed. Probably earlier for us down in Raleigh, but kind of a silver back to the leaf, which is very beautiful. You know, any kind of movement you're going to get on this plant, you're going to see it almost, it feels like the foliage is kind of changing colors as it moves in the wind just a bit. There's some ceanothus here, and I know they grow a lot of them. This is another one of our native plants, New Jersey tea. I don't know that I've ever covered ceanothus on the channel at all, but this is another one of those native plants it checks all the boxes for pollinators, for fall color, for, you know, this is fairly compact. Again, this is another plant that we, you know, come up to the north and see quite a bit. It's used quite a bit more up here, but fragrant flowers, I don't know if I just said fragrant flowers, so this one checks a lot of boxes. They grow a ton of rhododendrons here. So azaleas are rhododendrons as well, but typically when we use the word, you know, say rhododendron, we're talking about, you know, these large-leafed evergreen rhododendrons, and I don't know how far out the camera can see, but it's about as far as you can see out there. And we passed another section that was this big. This particular farm, I think, is like 350 acres, and they have other locations. So this place is so big that things just get blocked off. Like there's acres and acres of roses, and then you go to acres and acres of perennials, and then acres and acres of conifers, and then here's the evergreen rhododendrons, which just go on and on back in that direction. Although these are native to North Carolina, the only nurseries in the state typically are growing evergreen rhododendrons, with a few exceptions. There are a few people down east that do grow a few, but for the most part, any that are grown in the state of North Carolina are typically grown in the west, up in the mountain areas. There's a nursery up there that I used to get quite a few from years ago. And now I'm not going to remember the name of it. Something toad. I'm going to put it on the screen. I'm going to remember the name of it, and I'm going to put it on the screen because that's somebody I used to buy rhododendrons from in western North Carolina. But up here, you can just grow them freely out in the middle of a field in full sun. You know, this is not something we could do in the Raleigh area. They'd have to go into some sort of part shade or under some sort of shade cloth in order to grow. But every one of these rhododendrons are basically clones of one another. This is an absolutely incredible nursery like that, where everything is just so neat, and you know, every plant, like if a person's coming over here and they need to pull 10 for a customer, they can almost blindly pull them and come out with 10 that are pretty similar to one another, which is kind of fun to see when you go to a nursery that's really in the details. That's what you get, where they can just grow 500 or something and have them all look the same. We've come to a sea of Kalmia latifolia, and this is a plant that's hardy from Maine all the way down to the Gulf Coast, but provenance probably matters. Where this comes from probably matters. So picking one, if we were at Bobby Green's house, and he had this incredible Kalmia that was 15 feet tall and 15 feet wide, but it was one that he had found in Florida or somewhere along the Gulf Coast. I can't remember, maybe it was an Alabama native, because he's in Alabama. So it kind of matters where these come from. In the breeding here, I don't actually know. You know, in these named varieties, named cultivars, we don't see many of these in the ground in the Raleigh area, but certainly, you know, folks in the Gulf Coast should probably be breeding these specifically for the Gulf Coast area, and folks in the north should be breeding them for more northern areas. Again, you go to a nursery in eastern North Carolina, you're not going to see maybe a few, but not many Kalmia growing at all. And you come here and there's 5 acres, something like that. I don't know how many houses there are, and a ton of different named ones. These are typically going to bloom late spring, early summer, beautiful bell-shaped flowers, large clusters, lots of pollinators, beautiful red stems, a lot of breeding here around compact varieties, compact habits. So this one is Olympic something, right? It's a Olympic fire. I couldn't remember the word fire. This one's supposed to get 5 feet tall and 5 feet wide. Again, plants don't read the tag, so it may get bigger than that in time, but they do an incredible job with them. Really incredible job. We're in a sea of conifers here. I don't know how many acres of conifers. They have most of their conifer production together. This place is just organized like that, where there's one thing after another, except for that couple houses where I think they consolidate some things too, as the as they need big blocks for other things. This is a ground cover blue rug type juniper, but in a gold version. This is Golden Carpet. We filmed that Copper Harbor at Juniper Level Botanic Garden with Tony. It's yellow like this during the growing season and then turns kind of a coppery color during the winter time, where this one's going to more hold its color through the winter. But you can see it's in a bit of shade over here, which is interesting. The trees keep this shaded in the morning a bit, so it's probably would benefit from maybe a couple more hours of direct sun. It would be a little bit more yellow, but you can see this really fine textured blue rug juniper like ground cover, but in a gold version. Again, there's several of these on the market now, and be up to you. If you like that copper color in the winter time, that Copper Harbor would be the one to do, because it is a kind of an interesting winter copper color, or one that's kind of doesn't change, you know, season to season. This is a Heliopsis called Burning Hearts, and it is stunning. Really beautiful plant. These look kind of like dahlias in the garden, have a similar growth habit to it, but this is a native that we can add to our gardens that just get absolutely covered in pollinators. This is actually a brand called American Beauties, and if you've followed the channel, last year we went to North Creek Nursery and met Steve and Arden were in the video there at North Creek. Steve, the owner of North Creek Nursery, and the owner here at Pride's Corner, I think started this brand together, if I'm understanding that correctly. But you'll see this American Beauties brand more and more out in the world. It's something we're going to be visiting North Creek again before the end of this year, and we'll talk to Steve a little bit more about this this brand. It's really they're all over this particular nursery. Maybe we'll run into a couple more containers while we're here in the perennials, but it's native plants that have been some improved, some not. Some are just straight species, but they're definitely ones that you can pop in your garden and, you know, have a big impact with a pretty easy to grow plant. There's a big crop of Vernonia or ironweed that these will bloom up about this high by the time they get going. This is one of those late summer pollinator plants, usually good for the back of the perennial border, and nothing, I mean, there are very few things that will attract more pollinators, and it's always late summer into early fall. But this is one I wanted to pick up and show off. This is an obedient plant, and what we know about obedient plants, it's a native, but it's not so obedient in our gardens. Typically, it spreads by rhizome and can do it very rapidly. And so, again, if you're following the channel, because sometimes these things connect the dots, you know, over time. We were filming with Tony Avent at Juniper Level one day a few years ago, and he wanted to show this one off. Anytime, you know, we'll say, Tony, what's your favorite things in the garden right now? And he'll take us to lots of native plants typically, because that garden, despite being plants from all over the world, has a ton of native plants in it. But this particular variety is called Miss Manners, and he talked about it in that video. They called it Miss Manners because it can be put into your garden and not run all over the place really quickly. So it's an opportunity to add, you know, a great native long bloom, very long bloomed perennial into your garden without it, you know, bullying everything else in the garden. Great foliage, and this is one we'll probably end up adding to the garden almost certainly, but we run back into these things. And so, you know, this was a selection made because it doesn't run like that, and then because it's a good ornamental native plant, it's ended up in a plant brand called American Beauties, and so on and so forth. But you get to see it again, and I think you'll see this one available more and more. I have to admit, I've never been a giant Coreopsis fan, but the new Coreopsis breeding, a lot of these new ones just seem to flower and flower. So I need to go back. I need to back up and see if we should try a couple of these in the garden, because now when I see new ones in nurseries, you know, they just seem to be blooming pretty much all summer long. And you can see this is just a field of them here: oranges, reds, shades of yellow and creamy, you know, buttercream colors and that kind of thing. But really beautiful in mass like this. I've never seen so many varieties of echinacea grown in one place. This is one called Mellow Yellows, and you can see why it's called Mellow Yellows, because they age. You know, as they come out, they're kind of a brighter yellow color, and then age to a white over time as the seed heads form. Pollinators all over them. There's honeybees on these, but they have any coneflower under the sun, every coneflower under the sun at this place. It's absolutely amazing. But this one stopped us in our tracks. This is one that I would love to have in the Raleigh garden. I love how the color change creates a look where it seems like it's 5 different coneflower varieties growing in this spot, but it's just one. Really love these Pinus strobus. Torrealosa is this one, or Torrealosa is this one. It's got a really interesting character to it. We filmed this plant in Kentucky, but I don't believe it was this contorted one like this. This one, again, has kind of a mind of its own. You can see this 2-tone or 2-color needles in here. You'll get this blue, it's blue and green, and it creates this kind of a silvery look to it. This particular one, again, has a bit of a mind of its own. You're not going to find 2 of these that are probably identical, although they have them staked up and they're trying to turn them into that. But they're, if you lined up 6 of these, I think you would end up with 6 very different looking plants in time. But we're really, every time we run into this plant, we saw it somewhere just the other day. We weren't filming at the time, but it's so striking. That kind of silvery blue-green color combo that's created by the 2 different colors of needles on this plant. The other thing we ran into, they had, I don't know how many houses of butterfly bushes were there over there, 6 or something. We were on a tour and riding around, and they had an incredible group of butterfly candy butterfly bushes, and they were just standouts over there in full flower. A lot of the other butterfly bushes were flower here, flower there in the container, but these are just covered in flowers basically. Steph was chasing a monarch around. I don't know if she got any of that footage at all. If there is, it's over top of this, but that was kind of interesting to see a whole house of those butterfly candy butterfly bushes, which were kind of introduced through Plant Development Services down in Alabama. They've quickly moved up to nurseries all over the country. You turn a corner here and you find a whole new group of plants. Now we're in the Monarda or bee balm. They have several different species, but these named selections right here. This one right here is called Bubblegum Blast, and this one's called Berry Taffy. Look how compact these are in flower. They've suckered freely. You can see that even in the container. I mean, they are suckering like crazy across that container. So pretty much any bee balm you have is going to take the space that it can in the garden. So you should probably plant other things with it that are also a little bit spreading like this so that they can, that won't overrun the other things. But man, these things are so, look, nothing is going to draw in more pollinators, really. I mean, you get the hummingbirds, you get the bees, you get the whole combo with any of these, but I like these new, really super compact varieties. Again, they're going to get run in the timing of some of these perennials is interesting. Here's a purple flowering liatris, and I'm standing over here in a group of one called Alba that's obviously white, that hasn't started opening any color. Ours, when people came to the open garden in Raleigh, what was that now, a month ago at this point, ours were 5 feet tall and flopping over in absolute full flower. So these are a few weeks away from that, but this is a just fantastic native plant. I really like these I like these kind of tall, narrow perennials because we're on a narrow, we're on a pretty small lot, and it's nice to have some things that we can just put up against that little 3 foot tall fence we have that don't take a huge footprint but get big and tall and stick up above some other things in the garden, so everything's not just at one level down 2 or 3 feet off the ground like a lot of our other annuals and perennials are. But we have several liatris. You can buy these as bulbs in the wintertime in a box, and then you can start them in a container. That's how we actually started ours, that way, or you can buy them as plants already like this. These are going to be a little more established, and so next year, right out of the gate, first year, yours will probably be here. Ours went through this stage of they got a foot tall and rabbits ate them, and then the next year they got 2 foot tall and rabbits ate them, and this year they were 6 feet tall and full flower. So it took a minute for them to get established and get out of the rabbit zone, we'll call it. But liatris is another one of our great native perennials to the southeast, and you can see these growing in fields down in Louisiana and right up, any place we go where people, don't mow and allow things to actually grow. You'll definitely see liatris in those spaces, and the pollinators, bumblebees and butterflies, everything come to these. So there's some of this place. We're definitely going to come back up here. This has been a nursery that's been on my list for a while that I've wanted to visit for a long time. we'll definitely get back up here and shoot some individual plants in the future, and we may meet some other another friend up here at some point and talk about this American Beauties brand at the same time. So thanks for watching.